Hi. So, as a part of the quiz 4 replacement, so we are going to look at one core concept of cloud computing, which is the containerization, Docker, and Kubernetes. So, what actually does it mean by containerization? What actually does it mean by Docker or using Kubernetes? So, to get an analogy, in the earlier times, say for example, during shipping, so what happens is, people just bring their own luggages in different formats. So one brings a sandbag, one brings a big cart, and everything just dumped onto the ship. And which obviously means a lot of things break, and so that necessarily they started using containers. So within containers, they could easily pick and place the containers, drop it onto a ship, move from one ship to the other. So, in the era of software engineering, what happens is, say I use a Windows laptop and the production is a Linux server. And for example, I develop a application on Spring Boot or Java, or say, for example, Node.js. And so that Node.js application will be happily running on my laptop. But whereas when I move it to the actual production server, there could be a lot of dependency issues, conflicts, libraries not present, and a lot of issues, right? So this exact problem led to the invention of the concept of containerization. So in containerization, what happens is you essentially bundle up all the different libraries that you need, packages, or any kind of dependencies that you want, package it into one single container, and run it either in any of the platforms. It could be a development server, it could be a production server, anywhere, and it happily runs. How that runs? Because in any of the servers, or you say in your local system or in your production server, so there is one layer of, instead of the hypervisor, we use a layer of Docker engine, right? So for example, we have the hardware. On top of the hardware, we have the host operating system, and on top of the host operating system, in a general VM scenario, we have a hypervisor, and on top of the hypervisor, we install a virtual guest OS, right? But here, what happens is in the era of containerization, so there is the hardware, and there is a host OS. On top of that, we have a container engine. So now what happens is, so this is very similar to that kind of Java JVM, right? So what happens in a Java application? So you can build your Java application on MacBook, but whereas run the same jar on a Windows system without any problem. How? Because with the help of a Java virtual machine, JVM, right? So that JVM abstracts what is the underlying hardware. It instead helps translate the code, the actual jar file, into the machine language that is understandable by that particular hardware. So similarly, in a Docker environment, this Docker engine will make sure the particular container can run on any platform, because the Docker engine helps talking to the host hardware and operating system. So for example, that is container, and the Docker is the actual person who will create the containers and execute them. And whereas there is another concept called Kubernetes, wherein Kubernetes could be assumed some kind of a supervisor, wherein the supervisor is going to make sure that the containers are running as per requirements, right? So if there ought to be four containers or the four images of that particular application running, so the Kubernetes makes sure that the four instances are always up. If there is one instance down due to any issue, Kubernetes will spin up a new pod, right? So that's how right. So that's how we discuss about Kubernetes. So that's the primary difference between what is a containerization, what's Docker, and what is Kubernetes. Thank you.